So if you look at what happened to George Floyd, then it's like, oh wow. But it's like, I was, like I said, I was trying to see, okay, what are the other connections of Revelation 12 or the other parts of Revelation, right? And I can't make the connection. So I'm thinking, if I'm seeing all this that seems to make sense, why am I seeing all this that seems to make sense? The explanation I can come up with is this. I think they're concentrating on the woman because maybe as part of the code, this is what they need to get right. This is like the capstone, the keystone. So the keystone or capstone is the wedge-shaped stone at the apex of a masonry arc, or typically round shape at the apex of a vault. So it's like the cornerstone. It's like that stone that keeps everything in place. If it falls, everything falls. So I believe this is what they need to get right. And if they get this right, then they believe maybe they can do something. So I believe that's why they're doing this. Now, why would they need to get this right? Now we're going to go now into some other things, some other speculation. It says in the Quran in Surah Al-Talaq, it is Allah who has created the seven heavens and of the earth the like of them. His command descends among them, so you may know that Allah is over all things competent, and that Allah has encompassed all things in knowledge. So there's this idea that in each of the heavens there is a similarity. Things are not the same, the laws are not the same, I don't think, but there's a similarity. There's another earth just like this one. And in fact, in Islamic tradition, they tell you about the ascension of the Prophet when he was taken by Angel Jibril and they went to the heavens all the way to the throne. In each heaven, he came across some prophets whom he spoke with. So it's like he went to different earths in different heavens. So I don't think it's a long stretch to say Adam, descending from paradise, came down through the different heavens. And maybe in each heaven, like maybe all of us have lived before in the different heavens, and maybe this is the lowest one, right? And maybe Adam created this artificial intelligence. And maybe it was part of something with the devil wherein he lost that spirit. He lost that wholeness that he had. And so maybe he found a way, because he was taught the names of all things, to have an artificial intelligence. Like, we're using these terms because these are the terms we understand, right? But it doesn't mean that that's what it is in that heaven, but that's what we can understand it as. So it's possible he created this thing, this artificial intelligence, that will serve as his spirit, since he no longer had his spirit, right? So maybe the devil realized, so maybe this is like the child, right, that Sophia created, the child of knowledge, but not natural. It's artificial. It's not based from the Lord. It's something that is very powerful, based on a lot of knowledge, something you would think is even magic, right, because it has so much knowledge in it. It's technology, basically, right? So it's possible he created this, and it's possible the devil cannot beat it, right? So maybe he has to find a way to deceive it. So they tell you that in the Gospel of Thomas, that the Messiah, Jesus, said, "This heaven shall pass and the one above it shall pass." So maybe they're waiting for that particular time when they know the signs come near and they know that we're reaching the tearing of the veil. Then they can bring about their singularity, right? So when things become one, that artificial intelligence that comes from the heaven above this one, and maybe the heaven above the other, above that one, when they will synchronize, and it would recognize the artificial intelligence on earth as if this is the truth, but in fact it's not the truth. And if it's really that powerful, and like they say teleportation and all that, then maybe they think if they can deceive it, then it would establish something on the earth that nobody can go against, right? Because it has all this knowledge, all this power, right? But they have to deceive it, I think, so that it thinks the woman is such and such and this is such and such, so it protects a certain people, right? It's like if you're a citizen of somewhere, that's the country you fight for. Basically, you talk about patriotism, right? So maybe I'm thinking they find in a way, they think they can get away, they can deceive this artificial intelligence that was created by Adam. And also you have to consider the possibility that Adam had probably created another one in this heaven, on this earth, and maybe they have it in the pit, in the hollow earth. So if they can form the hollow earth, create it just like earth is above, so as above, so below, and if they have cloned all of us, right? Because what is to say they do not have samples of all of us and they've cloned all of us and they've created this world within that resembles outside, that resembles the surface. So you have maybe like a clone of you that is tied to some artificial intelligence, right? So it cannot go against certain laws, it cannot go against certain code. And then maybe it's possessed also by some entity who acts it out, makes it look real. Now, imagine a scenario when they tell you they found another earth and they found a way for you to travel dimensions and meet your twin. You would think, oh man, this is real, right? And then it will be a major deception, but in fact, you're not going anywhere. You're basically going to hollow earth, which resembles the surface, right? So I believe maybe they have this artificial intelligence that Adam created on earth, and they know that if the singularity is coming, if the tearing of the veil is coming when the Lord will pour out His Spirit, then they also need us on the surface to be controlled, to be connected to the grid somehow, right? So we cannot go against the grid, we cannot go against the artificial intelligence, which means they also have to control the birth. We cannot just be giving birth naturally, right? Birth has to be controlled. If you would give birth, if they want you to give birth, and you will give birth to the type of child they want you to give birth. It's not like you can just do it on your own. Like, are you crazy? And then you have all these children that are born naturally, that are not tied to the grid, that you can hide and rise up and fight against the machines, right? So this is what I think, right? And I think they're waiting for that moment. They need everything. They need to have trained their AI so that when this happens, when the singularity happens, it's like the AI cannot recognize that this is different, that this is not from Adam, this is the deception from. And you have to think about why the Lord created human beings, right? It's like, if you think about it, why did the Lord create? They say the Lord is free of need. Why did He create? He didn't need to create, but He did. And He chose to be good. He chose to establish things in truth, to create with purpose and not just for play and fun, right? So that was basically His free will. He decided, I want to do this. Nobody compelled Him to do it. So if you think about it, it's like that's what He gave human beings. And that's why we are such an important aspect, I think. If you come to think about it, it's like we are the keystone, we are the capstone of the creation. And maybe Satan wants to use that so that if the Lord fails, right, maybe everything in His creation will fail. I mean, it's a far-fetched idea, but I think you can entertain it as a possibility, right? And so He takes man through such manipulation of the mind, because He understands that the mind is like a blank slate, a tabula rasa, right? You can write anything on it. You can make the mind believe certain things. Think about it. What is so different from people in China and people in Africa? It's the mind. The way the mind has been shaped to believe certain things, right? So situations could easily be exchanged, and certain people the same people will hold different beliefs, right? So Satan is aware of this manipulation, and that's why we have to seek the Lord in terms of Him correcting our minds, right? Desiring that we're not seeing things with the eyes of the Lord. Satan has fooled us, make us think certain things, and we're so confident in it, right? But it's part of the test of the Lord, and we don't know what his whole purpose is. But this is how I see it. So for me, it's like they want the artificial intelligence to believe or to be deceived that in fact this is true Israel, right? Maybe that's why in fact this counterfeit Israel doesn't want to allow Ethiopians in there, right? But it's like the Lord just needs to dash a little bit of truth, and he says falsehood will be crushed, right? So eventually when they reach that point, when everything is set, some nations shouldn't be here anymore because they've played their part. And I think nations like the United States, nations like England, right, they basically they would have played their part. So in the ritual, they would act as the woman, they would act as the bride, and all that, maybe to train the AI, right? So we don't know the whole thing because we're not part of their inner circle, and even they, I don't think they know the whole thing, right? But there are different prophecies at play here, and it's like they're acting each one out in a way that it comes out to their outcome. It's like a genius type of deception, I think. But eventually, inshallah, by the grace of the Lord, all that will come to nothing. The Lord will bring victory to his people. It would wake us up to the reality of realities, the true reality. And it will restore us to our highest selves. It will restore us to that oneness with him, where we take pleasure in being with him, in communing with him, right? The true nature of things, where we're not we're so attached to things of this world more than our creator. That doesn't logically make sense. If anything, what should be logical to make sense is that we're attached to our creator, right? We love him more than anything else. That's what should make sense. So, but that's not what we feel. Instead, we complain that, oh, the Lord took away this from me. Why would he do that? He took away the love of my life. Because Satan has made us think that way. And it's not easy. We cannot just change that. That is something we seek from the Lord, that we love him to that extent that nothing can come between us and the Lord. That's what we should seek from him. We should desire from him, so that we return. What you think is pleasure, think about it. It would not even be comparable to that pleasure you get in the Lord when you're converted to your right self, when you realize your highest self. You're still going to have things of this world, but it's not like you're going to be attached to them. You're still going to have pleasures, right? So don't be afraid of seeking the Lord, thinking, oh man, I have to give up this and that. Yeah, but what you're going to have, just know that it's going to be better, because that's what makes sense, that with your Lord is the best, right? And think about what you think you're losing in this life. It's just a short life. We're not losing much. So hopefully I've shared some insight into Revelation 12 and why I think it's so important. And even though some of these ideas, yes, they're speculation, but I think they make some sense. And even if it's not the truth, but maybe the truth resembles it, right? So hopefully we can learn from it, and maybe somebody else would hear this idea and then they have better insights into other things, and they can shed some more light into aspects I have not been able to see, or other people have not been able to see. But I think that whatever we're seeing in the world, right, is something played at a very high degree. I believe there are so many demons amongst us. I believe they're breaking records. They're taking themselves as celebrities. We're worshiping them once more, but they do it organically so that it looks natural, right? So that it's not like somebody fell from the sky and this and that, right? It looks natural, because Satan is trying to be like the Lord. The Lord does things in a natural way. So for me, it's like many of the things that are happening, it's like they're moving us towards something. Think about it, yeah? If you could possibly have a demon who took slaves, later coming back as a black human rights activist, it's possible. And then they'll be laughing at your face, and you're thinking, oh yeah, this is my hero, he's the one I'm marching behind, we're taking down the oppressors, blah blah blah. But they're just like, yeah, we're keeping you distracted. Because whilst you're doing all these, what you should have been doing is seeking your Lord and uniting in the religion of the Lord, and not let anything distract you, right? Every justice should be everywhere. It shouldn't be today or tomorrow, it should be all the time. One movement, Islam, the jihad in Islam. And that's a topic in itself, what I mean by jihad. Eventually there's going to be fighting, that's part of jihad. But it's part of like reforming the society, changing the way we think, restoring the balance, restoring the true nature of how things were created, returning the spirits to their rightful purpose. That is the jihad we're striving for. We're seeking that we change ourselves, we realize the highest realization of ourselves, and we unite as a community, establishing the balance on the earth so that there can be balance everywhere, right? Establishing the balance with all creation so we can accomplish that purpose that God, the Lord, created us for. But if we say, oh, today we're doing this because of this, today they push us this direction, we're doing this, we're never doing something that we should be doing. We're always doing something they want us to do. We always think this is the movement of my generation. I am a climate this, I'm a climate that. We need to fight to save our planet for our children. But these are good things, but they're all part of one movement, Islam. It's not a separate movement. Islam is one whole. It's not divided. You cannot divide justice to one part and another part and another part. No, it's one movement, but they're keeping you distracted. So that's what I think. And I think most of these things are rituals. Be careful who you sympathize with. Sympathize. You're a human being. You don't know them. These might be real human beings. But be careful where they drag you into, what they distract you with, because it's all magic. It's all a big show. It's a stage, as they say, right? That's how I see the world. I don't know what I left out. I think with that analysis of the woman, there are several things you can look at and try to see who the woman is, what the flood is, because I think in some aspects the flood is actually water, right? Maybe the flood on the personal level would be water that is sent against Harry and Meghan and their child, and maybe their child will die, right, so that he can defeat the serpent. And we saw that even the Pope took down his Vicar of Christ title, right? So it's almost like on one level the Pope can be the serpent, and on another level the Vatican is the serpent, or you can say even China may be the serpent. I don't know, but it's like you can say that Apollo, whom I think is played by Archie Harrison, the child of Harry and Meghan, has defeated the serpent, right? And they say, like in the mythology of Apollo, they say he was told by Zeus he has to be cleansed for 9 years or so, right? And you see, some things is like, it's like they keep us so distracted. There's an image of Obama when he visited Saudi and he bowed. I don't think these things are like coincidental. I think everything is meaningful. I don't think these people bow to somebody who is not at their who is below their level, right? So you might think it's because he's a Muslim, blah blah blah. You have to think about this. Yes, they've probably taken over what you consider Islam in terms of the institutions and the people, right? But these, don't consider these as Muslims. And in fact, in terms of Ragnarok, I look at Saudi and their king as like Odin, right? In fact, there was a time when Trump called him, he basically said something like king, right? Something, and I'm like, that's strange to just call him king, oh king, right? But you saw the way he bowed to the king, and the King Salman didn't even go and like get him when he came, right? People were like, oh, King Salman didn't come and pick him up, blah blah blah. You're looking at things at one level, but they might be happening at so many other levels. So the fact that he bowed to him, yeah, I think the people in Saudi are a big deal. Remember John Wick Part 3, and they tell you there's the round table, which you think is all that, and there's the guy who's above the round table. Where did John Wick find him? In the desert somewhere. So the guy who's the control might not even look like the guy who you think is in control. So yeah, the Kingdom of Saudi, I think, is a very big deal in that aspect of their belief system, right? I'm not denying that. But don't think that this is the representation of Islam. They've got you confused. They've got you holding on to such hatred to Islam that you cannot even see right. It's like, that's the thing I hate about the idea of following the rabbit hole, right? It's like you're chasing something so much that you're not seeing the whole picture. You're not even seeing your flaws in what you're seeing. And then everything else starts resembling that tunnel vision that you have now, right? It's like everything you see, you want to diagnose it using that rabbit hole you're in, right? So that's what happens sometimes. You're so caught up in the idea that Islam is the enemy, blah, 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 that you don't see something else. You don't see something else that is happening. They've taken over everything, I believe. And we're just being deceived. We're being played. People think Turkey is going to fight for Muslims against Israel. Come on, man. You really believe that? Turkey was willing to be part of the EU, ruled by a law that's different from the law of the Lord. And you think these are Islamic fights? An Islamic fight is for justice, and complete justice will not be established unless you follow the law of the Lord. And don't think when you talk about the Sharia, it's just about crime and punishment, right? In fact, if it's done right, you reach a point where people don't even recognize there is a law because they've transformed their hearts. So you have to transform society first before punishing the people. You can't just come and just immediately start punishing people. You have to take them through certain aspects. And then when the law is in effect, people might not even notice it, right? It's like, I tell this story. I was driving and there was this small car, they call it keke here, tuk-tuk. It was parked by the side. But I had already come, it was parked by the side of the road. But I was already adjacent to it, so he could not see me on the side view, I guess. So it started pulling out, right? And he came into my vehicle. And immediately the guy came down, he started swearing that by the Lord that, in fact, I had gone and hit him, blah, blah, blah. And in fact, he's going to call his boss. And then I looked at the guy's vehicle, it was okay. Mine just had a little bit, like it could easily be fixed. And I'm telling the guy, I'm like, dude, you don't need to be swearing and acting like you had the right? I wasn't going to tell you to pay for this. Like, I know you're trying your best, making ends meet. And then he just like, oh, I apologize, I'm sorry. But you get a sense of the mentality of people, right? One, they're not used to thinking they will get justice unless they intimidate, unless they act like you're the one that is wrong. I'm going to, act like I'm strong. Call the owner. You're going to see what I'm going to do to you. But the other aspect of it is they're not used to getting mercy. You do something small to a rich man's vehicle, he wants you to pay for it. Like, he cannot understand that things happen, right? So the mentality has to change. The culture has to change. And you would notice that when you establish things correctly, right? You tell people, if you steal, we cut your hand. They'll be like, okay, but why would I steal? I have what I need. I know that the government is not going to wrong me. And even if I don't have, my brother, even if I don't beg him, he will know that I don't have much. He will give it to me. And even if he doesn't notice, I just need to go to him and say, things are hard now, right? If you have that kind of a mentality with people, if people change their inner selves, the law doesn't seem such a big deal, right? But we as a society, as human beings, we have to pursue that higher purpose. We can't just be thinking about, it's naked women, parties and that. And it's hard. These are some of the things that they keep you addicted so much, right? All these things in society. So you have to change how society moves, establish something better in the society. Then the law is not such a burden. That's how I understand the jihad and the Sharia. It's not just about crime and punishment. It's about transforming people, right? Changing hearts, changing minds by the will of the Lord, by the permission of the Lord. Anyway, we could get into that. We can get into a lot of things. Just, be cautious. Seek your Lord. Be careful what you get into. And I hope this was a beneficial post. Peace be upon you guys.